I'm Warren Sharp, and this is Sharp Football Analysis. I hope this has become your favorite sports betting podcast. We're going to dive right into a lot of the games that are of utmost importance this weekend, whether it's college football, NFL. We're going to break them down. We're going to give you some best bets. We're going to give you some analysis to support all of those best bets. I've got multiple experts who are going to be coming on momentarily and sharing some of that information with you. I hope you guys had an outstanding Thanksgiving. I did as well. Love that holiday. Looking forward now to the rest of this weekend, week 13. Some of the games that we're going to discuss. Miami at Pitt on Saturday. We're also going to hit Texas A&M versus Texas. Those two we're going to talk with Ryan McChrystal about. Then we're going to hit in the NFL. The Buffalo Bills at the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Houston Texans at the Indianapolis Colts. Denver Broncos versus the Washington Commanders on Sunday Night Football. Then we're going to also hit the Monday Night Football game. The New York Giants at the New England Patriots. We're going to hit that one as well. Many other games we're going to touch on throughout the course of this show. I think you're going to walk away with some great bets to make on a lot of these different games. Last week, winner Darren L. picked Juwan Jennings to score the first touchdown in the 49ers versus the Carolina Panthers Monday Night Football game. We're rolling this contest back, so make sure that you enter. It's $100 we're just giving away every single week, and we're doing it in the comments. All you have to do is comment who you think is going to score the first touchdown in the Monday night game between the Giants and the Patriots. Comment below. You'll be entered to receive a $100 deposit into your Novig account. If you don't have a Novig account yet, click the link in the description below. Sign up right now. You get an extra $100 match when you sign up. So you might as well take advantage of that. All right. That being said, let's get some quick reaction to the games from Thanksgiving, and then we'll dive into some of our best bets for this week. All right, some real quick recap of these Thanksgiving games. We saw all of the underdogs win outright, and it was fun watching some of these teams compete and some of these games coming down to the wire. But I've got to say, some of the coaching decisions and strategies were a bit perplexing to me. First of all, let's start with the Baltimore Ravens game against the Cincinnati Bengals. The Baltimore Ravens had been playing some more difficult run defenses the prior several weeks. They go into this game against the number 31 ranked run defense of the Cincinnati Bengals. And despite all of that, Lamar Jackson had 38 dropbacks in the game, and Derrick Henry had only 10 rushing attempts. Keaton Mitchell added only 2 rushing attempts to the mix as well. I don't know what we're doing here. It's not as if Lamar Jackson was super efficient. It's not as if you entered this game thinking that Lamar Jackson might be super efficient. After all, Lamar Jackson has been struggling massively since he's been dealing with all of these injuries, popping up with a new one left and right every single week. It's something else that's been going on with Lamar Jackson. So why are we expecting him to have a ton of success in the drop back game? Now, eventually you get down by a couple of scores. You do have to throw the ball. Granted, let's talk about the second quarter then, if that's your argument. Second quarter, the Baltimore Ravens leave the first quarter and enter the second quarter leading 7-3. You know how many dropbacks Lamar Jackson had in the second quarter? 11. You know how many rushing attempts Derrick Henry had in the second quarter? 0. 0 rushes for Derrick Henry, 11 Lamar Jackson dropbacks, 1 Keaton Mitchell run. I don't understand why this is prudent for the Baltimore Ravens. And I am not somebody, as you know, who would lobby in favor of a lot of rushing if passing is more efficient, which it is most of the time. But when you're dealing with a banged up quarterback and you finally get to go up against a weak run defense, I don't know why they didn't run Keaton Mitchell a lot more than they did. I don't know why they didn't run Derrick Henry more than they did. The couple of drives that they did have success and move the ball down the field, many of those drives were with the run game at the first and foremost aspect of this. So I didn't understand that. On the positive side, so we're not all negative, Joe Burrow looked tremendous to me coming back, much better than I thought, especially because he was complaining about that plate and he had to take the plate off in his shoe every single time he sat on the sidelines. He played through that pain or whatever he's dealing with because the plate is uncomfortable. Outstanding. just a great performance by Joe Burrow. Carved up this Baltimore Ravens defense. I don't think this Baltimore Ravens defense is actually as strong as the rankings suggest. And with their offense currently looking inept, with Lamar Jackson not looking great, with Lamar Jackson not having the upside of his legs. I mean, he did run for, I think, 27 yards, but it wasn't the same type of Lamar Jackson running. It was running because he had to, not necessarily because he just wanted to go out there and gain a bunch of yards. As a result, I just don't know where the Ravens are going to be going from here. And you sprinkle in the coaching, and that defensive effort from the players did not look like the same Baltimore Ravens that you remember from back in the day when Ray Lewis and Ed Reed would never allow a defense to play just without any teeth at all. It was a finesse almost type defense. It just did not look good in either case. In the earlier game, the best game of the day in terms of the most competitive game, I thought obviously that Kansas City Chiefs, Dallas Cowboys, at least for a large part of that game. And one of the issues that I had, however, with that game is when coaches coach and call plays based upon the scoreboard. And that's what they're mainly focused on, is just the scoreboard. And they're not focused on the ebb and the flow of the game itself. And this is a criticism of Andy Reid in this particular game. What I mean by this is Andy Reid sees himself down by 3 points or down by 7 points and thinks that he can just slowly run the ball and we'll try to convert on third down and we'll eventually get into scoring range and then we'll score points and we'll come close to tying the game up, hopefully. Not realizing that A, the Dallas Cowboys would get the ball after that with enough time to score, but more importantly, B, Dallas has only punted one time throughout the entire game. The Kansas City Chiefs defense was not stopping the Dallas Cowboys offense. Brian Schottenheimer, credit to him, called a masterful game in my opinion. Doesn't get as much credit as probably he should be getting for what he's been doing there in Dallas this year offensively with this team, shifting from offensive-minded head coach in the past who was calling plays to what now is a far better offense with Brian Schottenheimer calling plays. But this team just was the Kansas City Chiefs. You have Patrick Mahomes. You have every single one of your receivers up and healthy. I realized the prior week you ended up winning a game in overtime based on the fact that you ran the ball quite frequently with Kareem Hunt against the Indianapolis Colts. But that was up against Daniel Jones on grass outdoors. This is Dak Prescott in a dome with his receivers healthy. You, the Kansas City Chiefs, have everybody healthy. They just weren't pressing the gas pedal down at all throughout the course of the game. They weren't relying on what is their strength, which is Patrick Mahomes. You have the best quarterback arguably in the entire NFL with all of his receivers up and healthy. And we're relying on Kareem Hunt runs. I mean, it's just mind-boggling what they were looking to do, which is very ironic given the fact that Andy Reid historically has been criticized for passing the ball too much and not running the ball enough. But I just did not like his game plan, his strategy, especially late, thinking that Dallas wasn't just going to be able to go down and score. You need to score touchdowns, and you need to be able to have enough time to score more touchdowns and try to hopefully somehow get a stop from the Dallas Cowboys. It just didn't work out. A very fun game. Let's push these games like we did all of the leftovers off to the side. Let's focus on what we've got upcoming this week. We've got a lot of great games to get into. And let's start talking about some of these college football games with Ryan McChrystal. It's Black Friday, and we are giving you the best deal we've offered all season. With our special Black Friday sale, you can get all of my betting recommendations for under $35 per week. Go to sharp.football to get more details. We are offering massive discounts across the entire site, but your best option is to use this sale on either a rest of season or a monthly package. I don't know quite why we're allowing you to utilize this on a monthly package to get in and get out just 1 month at $33 per week locked in. It's perfect if you want to get savings more than a week, but you don't want to subscribe for the rest of the season. The monthly package is absolutely the way to go. We've had a great season for clients so far. A $100 bettor that has followed our bets since week one has won over $6,500. That's an average profit of over $500 per week. And with this sale, you are paying only $33 per week. You won't get a better opportunity to win with us this season. Go to sharp.football and get on board today. Now joining us is our college football betting expert, Ryan McChrystal. As a reminder, you can find all of Ryan's outstanding analysis over on sharpfootballanalysis.com, where he shares written game previews and predictions for many of the top college football games on a weekly basis. So make sure you check those out if you love Ryan's segments on the show. And Ryan, we're going to get started right off the bat here with a game that's Friday night, Texas versus Texas A&M. If we look at the odds jam odds screen right now, we can see that Texas currently is catching 2.5 points. The total is sitting at 52.5. Texas A&M is 11-0 for the first time since 1992, and it needs to win this game to assure a berth in the SEC title game. This line has been jumping around a bit. It's touched 3 at some spots. It's been a little bit lower at other spots at different points in time. Right now, as the time of recording on Friday morning, it's sitting at 2.5. So let's talk about this game, Ryan. Break it down for us. What do you like in this one?
Yeah, I'm on Texas A&M in this one, and I'm going to lay out pretty much the same logic I used a couple of weeks ago when you talked about Texas going up against Georgia. And it has to do with my lack of faith in Arch Manning and Steve Sarkisian's play calling in this particular matchup. The issue here is that Arch can't really process from the pocket yet. And that's not shocking. He's only made 13 career starts. It's pretty common for young quarterbacks to struggle from the pocket. The issue is, though, that Sark is asking him to do it at a very high rate, much higher than you normally see from young quarterbacks in the college game, where they kind of focus on getting the ball out quickly and just simplifying things for them. They're asking him to run much more of a pro-style offense here. And they're ramping it up in certain games, too, which is making it even more difficult for them against better defenses. Just to lay out the numbers now, on traditional dropbacks, where he's dropping back and standing in the pocket, Arch has a 54% completion rate. That ranks 92nd in the country. And he's getting pressured on 51% of those dropbacks. That ranks 123rd. Now, Texas' offensive line isn't great, but it's also not 123rd in the country. A lot of that pressure is Arch is struggling to make quick decisions and pull the trigger. And so he's inviting a lot of extra pressure in those situations, which is just compounding the issues and making it even harder for him to be effective on those traditional dropbacks. Now, on quick dropbacks, 0 one-step drops or RPOs, where he's just making one read and getting the ball out quickly, he's got a 75% completion rate. That ranks 22nd. Only an 18% pressure rate on those plays, ranks 34th. So he can execute those quick plays very efficiently. He's done well when they're just asking him to make one quick read and get rid of the ball. The offense is running smoothly. The problem is they're asking him to drop back in the pocket over half the time. Now, his traditional drop back rate when Texas is winning the game is 56%. So they're using it most of the time, regardless of the situation. But when they're trailing, it jumps up to 70%. Now, it sort of makes sense if you ignore Arch's struggles. Like, you're going to throw downfield more often in a traditional dropback rate, bigger chance of getting explosive plays down the field. So when you're trailing and you're searching for those plays, it kind of makes sense to use it more often. But Sark's kind of leaning on that without looking at what his quarterback is actually doing. He's just not efficient from the pocket. He's making too many mistakes. He should be leaning more on these quick dropbacks, and he just isn't doing it. Now, we saw this against Georgia just a couple of weeks ago. He really struggled, completed only 50% of his passes through an interception when he was in that in those traditional dropbacks, when he's asked to process from the pocket and go through his progressions. And that was a big reason why we talked about this on the podcast. That was why I took Georgia in that game, because chances are a team like Georgia, or in this case, a team like Texas A&M, is probably going to get a lead. They're favored for a reason, and you're going to need your quarterback to lead a comeback at some point, play from behind. And the way that they're calling the game just doesn't align with what Arch is doing well in the offense. Now, I will say there's a path to Texas winning this game. We saw them against Oklahoma. They beat a very good Oklahoma defense, and Arch played well in that game. But look at the game script there. It was very close early on. I think Texas was only trailing by a field goal early on, and they took a lead. And then Arch started to play really well, and they pulled away in the second half because they were playing from a lead and running the more efficient version of their offense. And we're deep into the season now. This is the final game of the regular season. I don't have any faith that Sark is suddenly going to realize, oh, we've been doing this wrong all along. I'm pretty confident he's going to stick with this game plan. He's going to ask Arch to make plays from the pocket when they fall behind in this game against Texas A&M. And the one thing I'll add, too, in that Oklahoma game, compare the Oklahoma offense to the Texas A&M offense. Which team is more likely to gain a lead at some point? Absolutely, it's Texas A&M, a much better offense than the Sooners. So almost certainly Sark and Arch are going to have to be playing from behind at some point in this game. I don't have confidence in Sark making the right play calls, and I don't have confidence in Arch executing the plays that Sark does call for him. So I'll lay the small line here and take Texas A&M on the road.
So speaking of confidence, just to pick your brain here, you've got one more best bet coming up in a second. Of the two, are you more confident in Texas A&M laying this short number 2.5, or are you more confident in your next pick that you're going to share with us?
I feel pretty good about both, but I'm going to be more confident in the next pick that we talk about.
Okay, so let's dive in here. We've got the Pitt Panthers, who did what they needed to do last week, obviously in convincing fashion, but now they have to take on the Miami Hurricanes. This game is in Pittsburgh. If we look at the odds jam screen right now, we are seeing Pittsburgh is catching 7 points at home with a total of 49.5. Obviously, shop around. If you're looking to lay Miami, you might want to head to one of these books right here. If you're looking to catch the 7 points with the Pitt Panthers, you might want to look at one of these books right here. So that's where you go to shop around. Pitt can claim a trip to the ACC championship game for the first time since 2021 if they win and either Virginia or SMU lose. Meanwhile, Miami has a glimmer of hope to sneak into the postseason with a win. They're still trying their best here. We have another questionable coaching matchup, at least in terms of the way that Miami sometimes coaches games here late. So I'm sure you're going to break some of that down for us in this one. But talk to us a little bit about what gives you confidence in Miami in this game.
Yeah, I'm taking Miami, hoping to ride this hot streak on that I'm with in the Pitt games. This will be the third week in a row that we've talked about. Obviously, we bet against them with Notre Dame. We bet on them against Georgia Tech, and now we're going to bet against them again with Miami. And it's good that you mentioned the coaching situation here, because I always like to, when I recommend betting on Miami, I always like to throw a little caveat in there of don't be too confident when betting on Mario Cristobal, because no coach in the country arguably is better at snatching defeat from the jaws of victory with his coaching decisions late in games. I think this has the potential to be a blowout, though, which is why I'm still pretty confident in Miami in this matchup. Now, obviously, we saw Pitt's offense look really good last week, but as we talked about on last week's show, that was a horrendous Georgia Tech defense. So it was no surprise that Pitt moved the ball pretty easily against them, especially early in that game. They just came out blazing right off the bat. Now they're going up against Miami, which I think has an argument to say that they're the best defense in the country. It's like a complete 180 in terms of the quality of defensive opponent they're going up in this game. And the biggest question that I have for Pitt is, can they protect their true freshman quarterback, Mason Heinschel? They must protect him because he's a freshman. He's inexperienced. He's going to make mistakes. He's going to take sacks. And I just don't think they're going to be able to do it in this game. Looking at opponent adjusted data here, Pitt ranks 127th in pressure rate allowed. Miami ranks 4th in pressure rate generated. Two complete opposite sides of the spectrum here. Heinschel's going to be under pressure all day long. Notre Dame, they don't have a great defense, but they have a decent pass rush, and we saw Heinschel running for his life in that game. He was just overwhelmed by Notre Dame's pass rush, and Miami is a clear step above Notre Dame in that area. And I think it's just going to kill so many drives because he's going to take sacks. Since he took over as the starter, only one quarterback in the country has taken more sacks than him. And last week against Georgia Tech, as I said, a terrible Georgia Tech defense, and they still sacked Heinschel 6 times. And that was a big reason why Georgia Tech kind of sort of hung around late in that game. They were able to stage a bit of a comeback and make it interesting because Pitt was just having drives destroyed by Heinschel's inability to get rid of the ball and take sacks. And now this week he goes up against a pass rush that actually knows what it's doing, and it's going to be able to get to him at a pretty high rate. Now, some teams against Miami can kind of combat that by leaning on the run game. We saw Louisville do that effectively earlier this year. They ran the ball well, and that's how they were able to upset Miami in that Friday night game earlier in the season. But Pitt's not going to be able to do that against this Miami team. Pitt has a decent running game. Desmond Reed is obviously a playmaker. He was injured last week. Sounds like he's questionable as of right now for whether he's going to play. But the problem is Miami's defense, what they do well against the run is they create a lot of early contact. So if you have a physical running back who can fight through that, you can have some success if you can get to the second level. But few teams in the country are worse at Pitt than that. They've got smaller running backs who are explosive, who can contribute in the passing game a little bit, but they can't fight through that consistent early contact. Desmond Reed, who I mentioned, is averaging negative 0.6 yards per attempt when he's contacted at or behind the line of scrimmage. That ranks dead last in the ACC. And his backup, who could see playing time if he's out again, Jakarian Turner, only 0.6 yards per attempt with that early contact. The FBS average is 1.7. So, most teams have a running back who are at least fighting through that early contact and getting some positive yards out of it. And Pitt just isn't doing that at a consistent rate. So going up against a team like Miami that just lives in the backfield, it's going to be very hard for Pitt to run the ball, which means they're going to have to throw the ball at a high rate, which means a lot of sacks. So I think looking at Pitt's offense as a whole, we're going to see a lot of drives killed by sacks, a lot of drives killed by negative plays in the run game. I just don't see how they're going to put enough offense out there to be competitive with Miami in this game. So, with the Mario Cristobal caveat aside, we'll throw that in there. I think that Miami has a pretty good chance to blow this game wide open. So I'm still comfortable betting on Cristobal in this one. So I'll lay the points and say that Miami keeps their sliver of playoff hopes alive with the win.
Well, look, Ryan, I might have to tell you, with the way that you've been hitting on these Pitt games on or against and knowing when to ride, when to get off that horse, I will say I am very nervous about Carson Beck in general as a quarterback, but he did get the cover for me at the last second last week, throwing a completely unnecessary touchdown on what was that, 4th down, that sealed the cover. I guess it wasn't the cover. It was a team total that I had bet on the Miami Hurricanes. I want to say over 33.5. I think they finished with 34 points. So that was brilliant. Kudos to Carson Beck, great player. And we'll look forward to seeing if he can cover this spread. So again, make sure that you are looking on your odds jam screen, if you don't have one, to go and shop around and find the 6.5. If you're looking to lay Miami, make sure you're laying the 6.5. This game is a noon kickoff on Saturday. You got a little bit of time, but grab that 6.5. If you don't have odds jam, you can get a 2-week free trial. Link in the details below for the show. As always, Ryan, thanks for the outstanding analysis. Good luck on these recommendations this week. And if you guys want to find more of Ryan's outstanding research, head over to Sharp Football Analysis, where he provides weekly content for us over there. Happy Thanksgiving and good luck, Ryan. As I've mentioned many times on this show this season, we've partnered with Novig, America's #1 sports prediction market, to give you an exclusive opportunity to try out their platform. They are offered in many states that sports books are not allowed, including Texas, Florida, Georgia, and more. And right now you can get a purchase match of up to $100 with code WARREN. Just click the Novig link in the description of the show below to get your $100 match when you open a new account. And don't forget, comment below who you think will score the first touchdown in the Giants-Patriots game on Monday Night Football for a chance to win an extra $100. After the game, we'll reply to the winner's comment on how to claim your prize, so make sure your notifications are turned on. All right, now joining me is our fantasy football guru over at Sharp Football Analysis, Rich Hribar, loyal member of the Sharp Prop Squad. And you can find all of Rich's outstanding fantasy DFS analysis over at sharpfootballanalysis.com. Highly recommend you utilize that Black Friday discount deal. Get on board with some of Rich's stuff to close out the NFL season. Rich, we've got 3 player props that we're going to get to. Let's dive in with the first one. You're looking at Jayden Higgins over 3.5 receptions, and that's the current number. You can find plus money here at a variety of spots. Shop around. You can get as high as plus 115 for him to have 4 catches, and that's where you're looking here on this one. So talk to us a little bit about why you think Higgins is in a good spot with the return of CJ Stroud going up against this Indianapolis Colts defense.
Yeah, the Texans are finally giving him that rookie bump for the 2nd-round pick. They invested in him. He ran a route on 68% of the dropbacks on Thursday night. That was his highest rate in a game with Nico Collins this season. His route rate has actually increased from the week prior in each of the past 3 games. He has 4 more catches in 4 of his past 5 games. The Colts are 31st in receptions allowed per game to wide receivers. They face the 2nd most pass attempts per game, 38.4. They're home favorites. So it's like, not the Texans, that is the Colts are home favorites. They're going to be forcing the Texans to be throwing the football. This one is just one of those ones that looks like the line hasn't caught up to kind of where Higgins' role has kind of manifested into the offense. And it's one of these ones I like to keep him in his opportunity kind of rolling and increasing.
Yeah, and you've got obviously quarterback in Stroud coming back from a multi-week concussion. Always, you're not quite sure about the level of performance he's going to deliver, but in this case, hopefully he gets enough targets here to our guy Higgins. Now we go to the next game, and we're looking at the Denver Broncos against the Washington Commanders on Sunday Night Football. And you're looking at a unheralded guy who a lot of people don't know yet. You don't think about this name when you're thinking about the Denver Broncos passing attack, and that is Pat Bryant. And you're looking at his longest reception, which is at 13.5, and you can get that for minus 115 at most spots, is probably the prevailing number here. So we're going to go with that from a grading perspective. Pat Bryant, longest over 13.5. What do you like about this one in terms of his utility? And then tell people how he's going to match up here against this Commanders secondary.
Yeah, another rookie getting more kind of put on his plate as the season goes on. Like we see a lot of these rookies always in the NFL kind of get some more opportunities as the season goes on. We see Pat Bryant has run a route on 62%, 74%, and 64% of the dropbacks the past 3 games. And what's important is that last game came with Marvin Mims back. Mims only played 15 offensive snaps in that game. He only ran 12 pass routes. Pat Bryant caught 5-6 targets for 82 yards in that game against the Chiefs. Bryant now is averaging 15.4 yards per catch. He has a reception of 20 or more yards in 3 of his past 4 games. And that completely lines up with this Commanders defense that's just been kind of beaten up on the back end this entire season. Washington is 30th in completion rate allowed to wide receivers. They allow the highest yards per target to wide receivers, 9.9 yards per target. They allow 14.3 yards per catch to wide receivers. That's the highest rate in the NFL. And then on throws or 10 or more yards, Washington is 31st in catch rate allowed to wide receivers. And they are 29th in catch rate allowed to receivers on 20 or more yard targets downfield. So I like Pat Bryant to kind of continue to be involved in the offense. And when he catches one, it's probably going to be one for a chunk gain on this defense.
Yeah, this defense, absolutely abysmal. Now, it will be interesting. Both of these teams are off of a bye. And so, what is Dan Quinn going to do defensively because he's now taking over those play calls? Could anything change there? But also, could we get Sean Payton with 2 weeks to prepare, working on ways to scheme up his rookie wide receiver here even more? So some excellent opportunities potentially on the horizon for a Sunday night football bet. Now we go from Sunday night football to Monday night football, where we've got the New York Giants taking on the New England Patriots. And, look, I admit, Rich, when you sent over these 3 that you wanted to discuss on the show, I ran into the same initial mind block as I had with looking at some of my own props this week, which is this is a disgusting slate. The NFL has stuck all the good teams, good quarterbacks, good passing attacks, it seems like, on the Thanksgiving and Black Friday slates. So we have to work with what we've got left. But this one, the more I dug into it, the more I was like, Rich might have found something here, because this one looks really good to me. This is definitely going to be a client play as well. So talk to us a little bit about Tyrone Tracy Jr., where, again, the odds screen at OddsJam is definitely going to be your friend in this one. Again, look in the comments below to get a 2-week free trial. But you can see here, 13.5 minus 115 at MGM is a great price compared to 16.5 over at DK. And of course, at Hard Rock, it's 13.5 minus 145. So you definitely don't want to be laying 30 cents more for the same exact number. And you'd rather save 3 yards as well. So shop around on this one. It looks like it's available at 13.5 minus 115. Rich, what stands out to you about Tyrone Tracy on Monday Night Football?
Yeah, and although the veteran quarterbacks all got pushed to Thursday night, I think Monday night Drake May and Jackson Dart is a fun way to close the week. I'm definitely excited to watch those 2 young quarterbacks play. They've been playing good, and they've been playing exciting football this season. We're getting Jackson Dart back after his 2-week absence. But you look at Tyrone Tracy in the receiving game. I mean, he's blown past this number in 3 of the 4 games since the Cam Scadaboo injury. The Patriots are a really good run defense. They're second in yards per carry allowed to running backs. They allow a league low 63 rushing yards per game. However, they allow the most receptions to running backs in the NFL. They are they're third. I'm sorry, I messed that one up. But that's 5.4 receptions per game. They're the third most in the NFL. When you look at Tracy, you say like, all right, well maybe these last 2 weeks were more Jameis Winston induced because he had 50 and 68 receiving yards these past 2 games. But Jackson Dart actually was hitting Cam Scadaboo with a ton of receptions as well. Jackson Dart is actually 18th in target rate to running backs on the season at 17.3%. They don't really have the wide receivers to go up against this Patriots kind of defense on the outside. They don't have a lot of the man coverage beaters that they're going to see. So I do believe Tyrone Tracy is going to be involved in the pass game. And over the past 2 weeks, even though we've seen Devin Singletary weasel his way into some goal line opportunities, Tyrone Tracy's run 42 pass routes compared to just 19 for Devin Singletary. So I really like Tyrone Tracy here, not only at this number, but potentially, at 20, 30 yards here too as well.
Yeah, I agree. The ladder potential here looks really enticing. And Singletary didn't have a single target or at least a single reception in the last game out. And you've got Mike Kafka now calling plays for a few weeks. And clearly they seem to be focusing a little bit more on Tyrone Tracy and a little bit more on Tyrone Tracy through the air. So like you said, maybe the market just hasn't caught up with this one yet. But either way, it's going to be one that's going to be in my pocket on Monday Night Football, and yours as well, and our subscribers as well. So if you guys are listening in, this is one that we're definitely riding with. This is co-signed by me. I love this one, Rich. So with that being said, like, this is just the surface of what you get from Rich over at Sharp Football Analysis on a weekly basis. He'll be coming out with his DFS recommendations on Saturday. So make sure to check those out every single week. And you can find all of Rich's stuff over at sharpfootballanalysis.com and use the Black Friday discount code to get a great savings on the rest of the season with everything that Rich has to offer. Rich, happy Thanksgiving to you and your family, and good luck this week.
Good luck, everyone.
All right, now joining us is our NFL referee expert over at Sharp Football Analysis, Joe Gibbs. Brings the heat every single week with some outstanding insights into the referees, their crews, what we might be seeing in the games upcoming. But before we dive into some of the games that we are about to see, I do want to touch real quick on some of the things that we saw on Thanksgiving, Joe. One of the things to me that stood out was the referee, Ron Torbert, granting a timeout to Matt LaFleur, which ended up being a very critical play call because it was on a 4th and 1, and he clearly did not get that timeout called in time. And it would have been a delay of game setting up for 4th and 6. There's no way they go for it. They would have kicked the field goal. Instead, they get the timeout granted. They score a touchdown on that 4th and 1, and the Green Bay Packers walk away with 7 points as opposed to just 3 points on that drive in a game that they barely won. So that was a big, meaningful one. And later on in the game, there was another clear, obvious pass interference where the player was grabbing the receiver's hand who couldn't get up there. And so that was another blown call. There was calls that were being blown on both sides in that Ron Torbert ref early game Packers-Lions. You had a couple of things that you wanted to point out as it related to the Cowboys-Chiefs game. So what were you noticing about that crew?
The later game? Well, to touch point on that first game you mentioned, as far as the defensive pass interference that wasn't called in the Packers game, I did a write-up of this on my Twitter account, and Torbert's crew just doesn't call a lot of defensive holding or defensive pass interference. That was really in line with the way they approached the game. They didn't call any yesterday. That's just how they do it, whether it's right or wrong. That's just the way it is. As for the Cowboys game, I wrote up about this, and I shouldn't be surprised going into the game. Hussey's crew, John Hussey, who officiated the game, they co-ranked number 1 for defensive pass interference. The Chiefs hadn't been highly penalized, but when they were penalized, it was on the road. And the Cowboys were the number 1 beneficiary of defensive pass interference penalties. So you add all that together, and the fact that there was 4 defensive pass interference called on the Chiefs, I mean, it's not surprising, but it got kind of ridiculous down the stretch. I mean, Chiefs fans can't complain. They've had the benefit of most of these calls over the years, but it was egregious, in my opinion. It was just so one-sided down the stretch that clearly there was, a lot of outrage on Twitter, on social media. Hussey is the best home field referee in the league after last night's game. Home teams 109-49 straight up, 69% with John Hussey. But that one really went above and beyond. There was a lot of home cooking in that game yesterday as far as the Cowboys were concerned. And look, in the end, they won. They were probably the better team, but they did get some beneficial calls along the way. That's just the way it goes. Some crews call defensive pass interference and some don't. And we saw 2 good examples of that yesterday with Torbert in the early game and then Hussey in the late game, how different they approached the game and how the game's called as a result.
Yeah, and this is where obviously your influence definitely helps to point some of these things out. But for me, as somebody who is trying to be just a unbiased watching the games type individual, it infuriates me to see the crews have such a different way that they approach things. I think that it needs to be far more uniform and consistent. If you did have more uniform calls, then the results would be a lot more standardized. But without that, you do have a little bit more of an advantage trying to figure out which ref is here, what he might call, what he won't call. So There's pros and cons to it when you're betting on these games, having some of that insight. But it does get very frustrating as you're watching these games and you see a ref staring right at the guy who's getting his arm dragged down, and he's just not throwing a flag for whatever reason. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Let's talk about a game that you're going to help us predict based upon the ref what might happen here. And that's Alex Kemp is the referee on probably one of the only good games on Sunday. I mean, so many of these games on Sunday, Joe, are going to be extremely gross. You're out there in Vegas on the West Coast time clock. You might as well just sleep in a little bit because some of those early 1 p.m. Eastern time kickoffs are pretty nasty. There's still opportunities to bet, so we still have some things that we like, and I'll be sharing my best bet momentarily. But one of the games you want to talk about is the Steelers versus Bills game, which is obviously very massive and important for both of these teams, especially with the Baltimore Ravens dropping the game last night to the Cincinnati Bengals. So talk to us about what his involvement is going to have. If we look at the odds jam screen right now, we can see the Steelers are catching 3 to 3.5 points at home, with the total sitting at between 45.5 and 46.5 points. So you can find 46, 45.5, 46.5. So shop around if you're interested there. If you want to lay the 3, there's a couple spots on the screen you can see that you would want to definitely gravitate towards to lay the 3. And if you want to catch the 3.5, there's some spots there that you can catch the 3.5. So again, shop around using OddsJam to help guide you. Joe, what do you think about this one?
Okay, so Kemp, he's not a great home field referee. He hovers around 500 for his career, so there's no advantage from that point of view. Here's something that's interesting with Kemp, and I've mentioned this to you before, and I keep an eye on it every week. Favorites with Alex Kemp. This dates back to the start of the 2024 season. Favorites are on a historic run, 26-2 straight up with Alex Kemp, 23-5 ATS since the start of 2024. That includes 10-1 straight up this season, and 8-3 against the spread. So favorites have a huge advantage with this crew. Given it is just a random sort of thing, but I keep tabs on it and it keeps winning. I keep waiting for it to revert back to normal, but so far it hasn't. So as far as this crew with the over/under, 8-3 to the under this season. He's normally a pretty good over referee for his career, but this season not so much. I think part of the reason is this. Special teams penalties, 22.5% of their overall penalties are called via special teams. That ranks them in the top 3 in the league. So that leads to less than ideal starting field position, which longer drives, less scoring. And that's what's happening. His games are averaging only 39 points per game. Offensive holding. Kemp ranks number 2 overall for offensive holding penalties per game. That's important for one reason. The Bills rank number 1 for offensive holding penalties per game. The Steelers have the biggest home versus road splits in offensive holding. They're very good at home. They struggle on the road, relatively speaking. So offensive holding, needless to say, will be a huge part of this game with this crew in charge. Other parts, third down defensive penalties. These guys go above and beyond on third down on the defensive side of the ball. They rank 2nd overall defensive penalties on the money down, and they've also assessed the 2nd most automatic first downs via penalty on third down. So if you throw with these guys, you will be rewarded from time to time. The problem is I think the weather's going to be kind of bad. I've heard Buffalo has both starting tackles out. I wrote about this game for Sharp Football Analysis on Tuesday night. I didn't realize the extent of the Bills' injuries, and they struggled against the Texans on the offensive line. And if they got 2 guys out here, I mean, that seems problematic with this particular crew in charge. I initially liked Buffalo because they've owned Pittsburgh in the Josh Allen era. I think they're 4-1 against the Steelers with Josh Allen as starting quarterback. But that does worry me, the fact that this crew calls offensive holding, and Buffalo does struggle with that on the road against a good defensive front in less than ideal conditions. So I probably lean more to the under with these guys the way it's shaping up. They're 8-3 to the under, like I said.
Yeah, actually, that was exactly the point that I was going to make. You hit it before me, though, with those tackles both being out. And if this crew calls a lot of offensive holding, you know, it's going to be incumbent upon Josh Allen to get rid of the ball a little bit quicker. Aaron Rodgers does have a fast release, gets rid of the ball a lot faster than Josh Allen does. And so maybe you don't have to pass protect quite as long. But with Josh Allen dropping back, trying to make reads, not even having a lot of confidence in his receivers, it's going to be fascinating to see exactly how many holding penalties get called on that Buffalo Bills offensive line. And as we know, those are very hard to make up and overcome, especially if the weather is a little bit bad with some wind and whatnot. Like trying to create explosives in that type of weather is going to be a challenge. Another factor here, since I didn't break this game down earlier, Joe, that I'll just throw out there is the Buffalo Bills have the number 2 best overall defense against 11 personnel. They have the number 32 defense against 12 or 13 personnel. So having that extra tight end out on the field helps massively against this Buffalo Bills defense. They're elite if you're just trying to trot out a lot of wide receivers. Not nearly as elite if you're utilizing heavier personnel. And guess where the Pittsburgh Steelers rank in their usage of 12 personnel? One of the highest rates of 12 personnel. So I expect the Steelers might do a little bit of ground and pound action, even though they got Aaron Rodgers back here, and have some success on the ground with that 12 and heavy personnel, which could lead towards a little bit of that under that you're talking about there, Joe, if the weather isn't ideal and if we get some offensive holding penalties called. So excellent analysis in this one. Any parting thoughts on that?
No, I mean, you pretty much summed it up. There's just so many unknowns with the. I can't keep track of who's in, who's out. Is Rodgers playing? So on and so forth. So, yeah, I just look at the penalty stuff and Kemp's crew. It's not a primetime game, so they may not go above and beyond calling it. But like I said, they're ranked 2nd overall. You're going to get 3 or 4 offensive holding penalties in different drives, and that just stalls a drive immediately. And so, yeah, this feels like a 20-17, 21-20 sort of game. But the total's like 45.5, and I like it under.
Yeah, and it's been dropping a few points. It opened a little bit higher than this. It's already come down a little bit, but probably still has some more room to go if the weather isn't going to cooperate here. Well, thanks as always, Joe, for the outstanding analysis. Hope you and yours had an outstanding Thanksgiving, and we've got the great weekend to look forward to. So good luck there. And as a reminder, you can find all of Joe's excellent work over at sharpfootballanalysis.com, where he provides a weekly article that encapsulates some little tidbits about every single ref and their crew, as well as some game previews along the way. So thanks as always, Joe, and good luck this weekend.
Great. Thanks, Warren. Good luck.
All right, guys, this has been a great show. Black Friday special edition here. Hope you guys had an outstanding Thursday. Hope you guys have enjoyed the best bets from Ryan and from Rich and some talking points from Joe about the refs on the Steelers-Bills game. But now it's my turn. It's my turn to give you my Novig value play of the week. And for that, we're going to turn to a disgusting game. And this is a bet that you're not going to feel comfortable making. But it's the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Tennessee Titans, and we're looking at quarterback Cam Ward rushing yards market, and we're going to look at the over 10.5. And right now you can see it's 10.5 everywhere, literally painted across the board pretty much. And you can find it at the best price at -110 over with our friends at Novig. So that's where you want to go to grab the 10.5 on Cam Ward rushing yards over. Now, a couple things about this, but the first and foremost thing, in my opinion, is what we've got right here. I'm going to hold this up so you can check it out. This is pressure rate across the x-axis and blitz rate across the y-axis. And I've made the teams that Cam Ward has faced a little bit larger in terms of their logo. And what you'll find is the rushing yards I've drawn on here in all of his games that he's played those teams. So the teams that have the lower pressure rate and sometimes the lower blitz rate is where he isn't really running the ball very much. -6 yards in that game against the Cardinals, 4 yards and 12 yards in his 2 games against the Colts, 0 yards against the Raiders, 6 yards against the Chargers, 8 yards against the Rams, 0 yards against the Patriots. However, when he's played teams that get more pressure, like the Texans and like the Seahawks last week, 22 rushing yards, 33 rushing yards, and 37 rushing yards. And where do the Jacksonville Jaguars sit? A higher blitz rate and the second highest pressure rate that he has faced. The Jacksonville Jaguars, over the course of all teams, because you have to note the Minnesota Vikings way up there, they have the 3rd highest pressure rate of any team in the NFL, roughly 40% of dropbacks. This is going to put the stress on Cam Ward to need to do something, because he can't just sit in the pocket. Now, early in the season, he wasn't running quite as much. And I've got an interesting talking point here from his interim head coach, who apparently has been encouraging him to run the football more. He said, Cam Ward is not only taking what the defense giving him, but also taking off and running that was his next step in his growth. He said, it's one of the things we've been trying to tell him from day one. Press the line of scrimmage, and if it's not there, you'd be surprised how much a 2 or 3 yard run helps you on the next play. He did it more yesterday. He's talking about the game this past week against the Seahawks than he's done it the entire year. So apparently this is something that the coaches have been encouraging. Apparently this is something that Cam Ward is doing a little bit more frequently. And now he's going up against a perfect defense, very similar to the Seahawks last week. Get a ton of pressure, and he's going to need to run the ball. Now, this line has obviously moved up from where it opened a couple of weeks ago, where he wasn't really running the football. At times, I want to say there was like 6.5 in terms of his total rushing yards. Then it jumped to like 8.5, and now it's up to 10.5. But 10.5 is still what he started the season with, at a 10.5 rushing yards line. It was even 12.5 in some weeks earlier on in the season, and he just wasn't running the football. Now he is. This new interim head coach is encouraging it more. This interim head coach is talking about it more, and you can still get a 10.5 on this number. I like this. I think it has laddering opportunity. Obviously, I would encourage betting a couple of those small ladders, but the play itself is 10.5 rushing yards for Cam Ward, widely available, but best bet over at Novig. So you might as well click the link in the description below. You get a $100 price match when you go over to Novig if you use the link in the description below, and you can also get the best price on this one over there. So we're looking at that one to increase our year to date up to 11 wins and 2 losses. We'll see if we can get it done for you guys. That's our best bet of the week. And that'll conclude our show. I hope that you guys have enjoyed it. A special Black Friday edition. We got it to you, recorded it early Friday, have it to you as soon as possible on Friday to digest as you're getting ready to open up some of those leftovers for dinner on Black Friday. Hopefully you got some of your shopping done. Hopefully you're getting ready to watch some more football. We've got some great college and NFL games all weekend long, starting Friday through Saturday and Sunday, concluding Monday night. We're almost to that bowl season time. I'm getting excited. The bowl season has been very, very good to us. If you're a client, you already know bowl season has been outstanding for several years. So I cannot wait for that. We've had a great college football season. That's the one thing you hate to see go, because we've done really well in college football, especially the last several weeks have been on a big time heater. Hopefully that continues this weekend, but definitely looking forward to bowl season. But one thing at a time, let's try to knock out a lot of these bets here for week 13. We'll see you guys soon.